And Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has urged the United Nations Secretary General to evacuate the UNIFIL peacekeeping force from combat areas in Lebanon. He warned their presence in the area made them, in his words, hostages of Hezbollah. On Thursday, the Israeli military repeatedly fired at UNIFIL headquarters and positions in southern Lebanon, injuring 2 members of the peacekeeping force, according to the United Nations.
I want to address the Secretary General of the United Nations directly. It's time to withdraw UNIFIL forces from Hezbollah strongholds and combat zones. The Israeli Defense Forces have requested this repeatedly and faced rejection repeatedly, a rejection entirely aimed at providing a human shield for Hezbollah terrorists. Your refusal to withdraw UNIFIL forces makes them hostages of Hezbollah. This also endangers them, as well as the lives of our soldiers.
Well, for more on this, let's speak to Jamshed, who's joining us from Amman, Jordan, because Israel's government has banned Al Jazeera from reporting from Israel and the occupied West Bank. Mohammed, what are we to make of this warning, what seems to be a warning from UNIFIL, from the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu? Is it really a warning or more of a threat?
Well, Folly, it certainly seems as though Netanyahu in this statement is sounding like he is blaming UNIFIL for the fact that Israel hit those UNIFIL areas where the peacekeepers were and injured those peacekeepers in the past few days. I want to read you and our audience a little bit more from those remarks from Netanyahu, in which he said, "We regret the injury sustained by the UNIFIL soldiers, and we are doing everything we can to prevent this injury. However, the simple and required way to ensure this is to simply remove them from the danger zone. Unfortunately, some European leaders are putting pressure in the wrong place. Instead of criticizing Israel, they should direct their criticism at Hezbollah, which is using UNIFIL as a human shield, just as Hamas uses UNRWA as a human shield in Gaza." This is really just another indication of how Israel is continuing to lash out against the UN. You've had so many indications in the last couple of weeks. First of all, you had the Israeli foreign minister just this past week, and also reiterating it today on Twitter, that the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, is persona non grata in Israel, that he will be banned from trying to visit Israel going forward. Then you also had the presence of Netanyahu at the United Nations General Assembly a few weeks ago, in which he accused the UN of anti-Semitism. Now you have the Prime Minister stating that these UNIFIL troops, this peacekeeping mission, which has been in Lebanon for so many years, that it should just move. It's not as if UNIFIL can just up and move by itself. There are UN Security Council declarations and resolutions they have to comply with. And then you have the campaign against UNRWA, which continues to this day. And so really, this is very much being taken as a very serious escalation as far as the type of rhetoric we're hearing from Netanyahu and other Israeli political leaders when it comes to the UN. And it very much puts into question as to what exactly the Israelis are going to do when it comes to the presence of those UNIFIL peacekeepers in Lebanon in the days to come.
Right. And meanwhile, there have been more rockets fired from Lebanon into Israel. Mohammed, talk to us about their aftermath and just how far and deep these rockets are getting into Israel now.
Well, Folly, you've had a statement from the Israelis that just since midnight, there's been over 75 rockets that have been fired from Lebanon into Israel. We know that a few hours ago, the Israeli army said that there were at least 5 rockets that have been fired in the direction of Haifa that had been intercepted by the Israeli air defense systems. Now, that is significant because in the past several days, this past week, you've had dozens of rockets every day fired towards Haifa. And in fact, just last week, you had one day in which 5 rockets actually landed in the center of Haifa, causing injuries and damage. They had evaded interception by the Israeli defense systems. Now, Haifa is a very strategic city. It's the 3rd largest city in Israel. It's the largest city in the north of Israel. There is the main naval base for Israel's Navy there. It's got a population of about 300,000 people. There is industrial complexes there, oil refinery facilities. So the fact that these rockets continue to target a place like Haifa and that some have been able to evade those air defense systems, that is something that is concerning to Israelis who are hearing from their leaders that the country is becoming safer because of Israel's actions when it comes to all these conflicts it's involved in. But on the other hand, they're seeing that more and more rockets are being fired towards these strategic cities, going deeper into the country, including center of Israel as well. You've had rockets fired towards Tel Aviv and drones targeting Tel Aviv the last few days. At a time when they're hearing that the country is going to be more protected, they're worrying about the fact that it seems as though they are more vulnerable from these types of rocket attacks. Now, today we are hearing from Israel's army that in Haifa there have been no injuries. But again, the sirens, every hour it seems as though the air raid sirens are once again being deployed, being utilized, that people feel like there is this threat, that it is getting worse, and it is causing a lot of questions at a very critical time.
Mohammed, thank you for the update. Mohammed Jamshed live there in Amman, Jordan. Let's discuss all this further now with Mahim Klein, who's a professor of political science at Bar Ilan University. He's joining us from West Jerusalem. Thank you for your time again, sir. I want to start off with what the Israeli Prime Minister has told the United Nations. His warning to the United Nations. He wants UNIFIL troops to leave southern Lebanon. It would seem that Israel right now wants the eyes and ears of the international community in southern Lebanon to not be there anymore. What does that suggest about what it intends to do in Lebanon, the kind of war it's prepared to wage?
As far as I see it, Israel declared a war on the UN. Regarding Israel's plans for what the day after, I do think that Israel has no strategic plan what to do, who will deploy in South Lebanon. Israel has no, as in Gaza Strip, also in the north, in Lebanon, Israel has no endgame scenario. Who will replace the UN? If not the UN, who? Can the very weak Lebanese army do the job? International forces, can it be done without Hezbollah, who is a very strong power and player in Lebanese politics? Can Israel achieve its strategic goal to achieve total victory over Hezbollah and reshape the region with Jewish supremacy, as Israel wants to do in Palestine? These are unachievable goals, and Israel has no endgame, just more war, extending the war to the south, to the north, from the south to the north, and even entertaining the idea to expand the war to Iran.
Right, so it wants to extend the war. We've heard the United States in a phone call between the Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin and his Israeli counterpart Yoav Gallant say that Israel needed to pursue diplomacy now once it has completed its goals. But it's unclear what the timeline of that is. Where do you think the pressure can come from? It's not clearly coming from the US right now. Is there anything the international community as a whole can do right now to pressure Israel to pursue this diplomatic route?
If the United States is weak vis-à-vis Israel, the rest of the international community is even weaker. It seems to me that the debate or the discourse between the US and Israel is about tactics, about the measure of the Israeli operations, the expansion of the war in Lebanon and to Iran, not about the goal or the aim to weaken or perhaps destroy the exit, what they call the exit of evil, of China, Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas. Israel plays in this strategy together with the United States, not against the United States. So they coordinate and they together are the same page. They are not against each other.
Right. And how do Israelis feel about the expansion of the war, as you say? Are they prepared for the consequences of what the expansion of the conflict could mean?
Inside Israel, there is no domestic pressure, no opposition to the expansion of the war yet. Perhaps later, but not yet. Actually, many, perhaps half of the population, support the expansion. They are excited by the special intelligence operations in Lebanon against Nasrallah and Hezbollah operators, and they think or they hope that Israel can achieve its supremacy goals in Lebanon and against Iran. They don't acknowledge yet the high price that Israel may pay.
Thank you so much for talking to us about this. Very interesting to get the view from Israel. Mahim Klein, Professor of Political Science at Bar Ilan University. Thank you very much for your time.